remember once asking the fruit and veg guy to cut the pumpkin in half, and he goes, "No, you've got to take the whole pumpkin." And my grandmother just turns and goes, "Well, you can take your pumpkin and you can shove it up your ass." And that's...
Your nan sounds cool.
That's the genteel kind of people.
Welcome to Burger with the Buster, where we talk about mental health, comedy, all things in life. We interview celebrity comedians, everyday people. Everyone gets a bit of a voice on this show, so thank you for tuning in. Today, the one and only Northern Rivers comedian, Mandy Nolan.
Hello.
Hello.
Nice to see you.
Oh, I stepped on your foot. I stepped on your foot.
All right, don't worry.
Don't step on people's feet.
Wow.
160 kilos on your left boot. There you go. That's okay.
I can take it. I'm a big girl.
Yeah.
This looks great.
It is. It's a setup. So
Yeah.
we basically cook you a burger.
Yeah.
We talk about all things Mandy. We try not to talk about Buster because I start talking all things Buster real quick. So we'll have to stop that. But basically, I make you a burger.
Yeah.
We have a yarn about your inner thoughts and where you're from and your background and
Okay.
your comedy life and your personal life, whatever you want to talk about. And the show is basically getting the message out there to mental health, is to have a sit down with a friend, have a feed, and just shoot the shit.
All right, we're good at that.
We're good at that?
I'm glad you said inner thoughts, because for a minute I thought you were going to say inner thighs, and I went,
Yeah.
I just don't feel that's relevant to the mental health conversation.
We won't be talking about thighs, no.
It's beef. All
So,
right.
I know you. I don't know you that well, but I've known you for 3 or 4 years, but I don't know too much of your background and how you got into comedy and how you dealt with the early days and stuff like that. So tell me about Mandy. Like, where are you from? What did you...
Well, ironically in the sense that I'm a country girl. I grew up in a town called Wandai in southeast Queensland. I was born in Kingaroy, Joby Occy Peterson country.
You're a Queenslander?
I'm an absolute Queenslander.
Oh, there you go. I didn't know that.
Yeah. You can't get much more Queensland than growing up in
Kingaroy.
Joby Occy Peterson. So we grew up in National Party heartland, and when I was growing up, my grandfather was a communist. My family, poor working class as shit, right?
Yep.
They're, really on the bones of their ass, and very much we were about the only Labor voting people we knew.
In town?
No, ever that we'd
really?
ever met. Like,
Yep.
and it was always told, don't tell anyone who you vote for.
Yeah.
Don't tell anyone because you'll get bashed at school. Because I'd seen, you don't have those conversations. So I grew up I loved where I grew up. I had great relationships across my community. I knew deep down, even as a child, that the way I approached life and saw things was really different.
Yeah.
So, and I had, my upbringing was very, I had the classic, my mum was 19 when she got married because she was pregnant in a caftan. My dad died when he was 30 in a car accident. I was about 6. He had horrendous alcohol issues. Yep. So died drunk at the wheel. And it was, and that released me as a child. So I've given you a big swathe. I've gone in fast.
So you've gone in hard. I like it.
Yeah.
So Dad was a communist.
No, my dad wasn't. My grandfather.
Sorry, your grandfather was a
mother's
communist.
father.
Your mother's father was a communist. And your mother and father are Labor voters.
My father's father was a fucking weirdo. He locked himself, and I shouldn't say that, but I feel bad now because he just absolutely, I think, affected everyone was, you see how the mental health thing goes in the family.
Yep.
Like, we have massive mental health issues, mainly anxiety, OCD, and massive depression across both sides of the family. And on that side, he locked himself in his room for 6 weeks. When he came out, he never spoke again. Right, and he didn't speak for 40 years. Like, what? And to my grandmother at all. When he did actually say some things. So I thought he was the gardener. I didn't even know that he was my grandfather because he didn't speak to me.
So he didn't speak at all to anyone? Like, he didn't murmur things?
He didn't murmur. He occasionally, he never spoke to my grandmother. Wow. Until he got dementia and forgot he hadn't spoken for 40 years. And he said something.
Sorry.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Yeah, it was a bit weird. But she, so he would call my dad. He wouldn't use if he did speak to you, he didn't say hello, goodbye, use your name. or use anything personal. So my dad, it was no wonder he grew up so, because he was a really beautiful, warm man.
Yep.
But he was a real Jekyll and Hyde, and his dad called him Boy. That was it. It was a really kind of a...
I've got an Uncle Boy in my family from that generation.
Have you?
Yeah, he's passed. He was a World War II vet, but he was Boy.
Yeah, it's awful.
Yeah.
Like, it was really... And I think then we didn't realise that he had a mental health issue. We just thought he was an asshole.
Yes.
Right? And that was really sad because he never got any help. He got diagnosed with eventually, when he was in his late 70s, it's the worst clinical depression the doctor had ever seen.
And no one heard of it.
No one had ever heard of it.
No one ever heard of it.
And it was really true. You kind of adjusted in your family, but because of the way he interacted with his family,
yeah.
Well, that's why my dad died at 30 because he was
and he thought his dad was a dickhead.
Well, yeah, it was generational trauma because
Yeah.
you kind of enact a trauma. A person who's trauma, I didn't actually ever know what happened to him. He didn't go to the war or anything because he had flat feet.
Yeah.
But I do remember once.
Can't get shot at because he got flat feet.
Yeah, I was watching my grandmother, because my grandmother was, I used to go there all the time, and my grandmother was your real kind of Ivy. She was the big talker, and they had this weird routine where she'd have I don't know, I guess she'd make food, and he'd come and eat, and then he'd leave, so they never had to sit together. But they had this life, he'd made a cave.
But you can't divorce back then.
Roll this. No, she'd go, I'll tell you one thing. She goes, not like people today. I have stuck at my marriage.
Exactly.
And I would say to her, and how's that going for you? She goes, well, actually, not very good.
Exactly. Like, you see these old people. Like, I'm from a country town. Like, you see these old people who fucking hate each other.
Yeah, I know.
They hate each other. And you're like, they're in their 80s and 90s. You're like, hey, you're going, she's fucked. You're like, why are they together?
Well,
Like,
you couldn't believe it. So this one time, this is just one of the many times, and I saw her, the only time I ever saw her snap, right?
Yeah.
I'm about probably 7 or 8, and it's probably the year after my dad's died. I'm a bit of a strange child by this stage, in the beginning of developing my own mental health issues. And I see she's making something, and he's sitting down, because he's got his garden hat on. He's sitting there having his dinner, and she goes to me, would you like a juice, love? And she goes to, those big cartons of juice. She goes to pour me a juice. Yeah. And I go, yes, Nanny. And then she goes to pour it, and then she just lifts her hand over where he's sitting. She goes, whoops. And then she tips the whole, the big orchard thing onto his hat. And it's just, she keeps going, oops.
did he flinch?
No, he just sat there like this, eating. And the juice is running down here like that. He doesn't move. He just takes this, eats like that. The juice keeps coming. It's like orange rain.
So it was like a standoff.
Oh my God. And then and he finished, rolled his cigarette, had his cup of tea, went outside, and I just went, holy hell. Even as a child, I knew.
That's bad.
That was deeply fucked up.
That's fucked up. That's some fucked up shit. So you...
These people have passive aggression down to like a fine art. But she, so she was pretty tough. So if you didn't do things, like as a kid, I'd trail around after her. And remember once asking the fruit and veg guy to cut the pumpkin in half. And he goes, no, you've got to take the whole pumpkin. And my grandmother just turns and goes, well, you can take your pumpkin and you can shove it up your ass. And that's...
Your nan sounds cool.
That's the genteel kind of people. They didn't go to... Can you imagine?
Yep.
They didn't go to therapists.
No, they just gave it to everyone around.
It was kind of... I don't know if she could have had insight. It was kind of not in that...
Yeah.
It wasn't within her toolbox. But growing up at the time when my dad died with me, and that's when I got... That's when I fully... we have major OCD because we're doing the mental health thing in our family.
Yep.
So that's when I've got the fucking fucked up story. Like, it involves my brother.
I don't want to cook the meat yet.
No, you can cook it. Well, you want to cook it. It is. You can cook it because it's fine. Well, you don't know, and now I know. I only realise my son. Various kids of mine have had mental health issues around pretty profound anxiety, not just mild ones, extreme.
Yeah.
And my son has really high achiever, but has massive OCD, which is around people have these real ideas that OCD is like, tidying things up. And
my head, when you're saying OCD,
Yeah.
I'm thinking he wouldn't like this being crooked.
No,
he wants the thing being...
No, he doesn't care about that.
Okay.
So his OCD is not about that. His OCD, which mine was too, is around intrusive thinking. It's, which is actually one of the most misunderstood things about OCD, is that as an obsessive compulsive disorder, there's many ways of presentation.
Yep.
About what happens. So people that get intrusive thinking get, it's a constant barrage of uncontrollable and usually really disturbing, horrendous thoughts. That you're going to kill someone, that you're going to, and you cannot stop it. It goes, or like my son would get one about that he's going to stop breathing. He can't breathe. And he would, and this would go, it was like a rolling panic attack.
Yeah.
That would go for a year and a half. And you have to go, you have to disrupt the thought. Right?
Yeah.
Anyway, so when that was happening, it had happened various times to him as a kid, and I eventually went to his child psychologist. She's a psychiatrist, actually. I don't really like psychologists. I just argue with them.
Yes.
I was always smarter than them, so I went, I better go somewhere else.
Yes, I understand.
So, not all of them, but most of them. And I went to, could have been heaps. And I told the story to the psychiatrist, and I said, he asked about family history, and I told him my story. And he goes, you definitely. I went, because I kind of grew out of mine.
Yep.
But this is, so obviously I came through pretty full-on domestic violence. I've seen chairs go through walls. I've seen, I've been locked in them. Pretty full-on stuff.
Yep.
In my head, I thought, if I'm important, this won't go on.
Yes.
So when my father died, even though I loved him, I went, that's a sign.
Okay.
It's game on.
It's game on. So
Right.
you became Mandy.
Well, yeah, I went, okay, this is going to get better from now. So then I end up getting this weird thing, right, where I became obsessed. This was the OCD, but no one ever knew about this at the time. For about 2 years, from about the age of 7 to about 9, I was obsessed that my brother's penis would get ripped off, right?
So, I'm sorry, I shouldn't laugh.
I know. Well,
But
you
this
can
is
laugh, it's true. It was weird.
So this is OCD.
Yeah, so this is the intrusive thinking, right, as a child. So he would have been 1, and I'd never seen a penis before. I remember seeing it and going, that is ridiculous. That's going to get stuck in something.
I've had a lot of women look at me and go, that is ridiculous.
I know.
I'm very relatable with the penis and ridiculous thing in my life.
Well, I thought he's going to get that penis. He could cut it off with scissors. A bird could come down and take it. He might get a truck, a bike. He could get it in the bike chain.
Yeah.
So what I decided...
This was your intrusive thoughts.
Yeah, constant
I'm getting it.
intrusive thinking. And all I could do as a child was, all I thought of was violent castration, images of how my brother was going to lose his cock.
Wow.
He was only little. So my job was to guard his penis. And I guarded his penis for 2 years. Anyway, I had forgotten about the penis guarding period where
You grew out of it.
Yeah, well, I could grow out of it, thankfully, and he did keep his penis.
To this day, he has a penis?
To this day, he has it.
That's
so
fantastic.
I decide, a bit drunk at his wedding, right? I think
Did you tell everyone?
I told the story.
I love it.
It didn't go over as planned.
Didn't it?
Well, people were going like, this is a bit weird. Like, because we're going, it's not sexual. It was a protection.
Mad
And I said,
comedian
like,
sister
his-
talking about
his
his
wife going, and he's got a penis today to take into this marriage because of me. I decided
Yeah, to his wife, you're welcome.
Yeah, like it was more like, anyway, it was a bit odd.
The people who don't get mental health would have been at that wedding going, fuck's she talking about?
Yeah, no, you kind of do that because I was laughing about it in retrospect. Then I realised, most people don't get what intrusive thinking is and how that was really full on. It's actually really common.
Well, I'm thinking I've got it.
Do you get it? Do you get these they're like, I had a few other moments of it, but when I was about 14 or 15, I grew out of it.
Yep.
And it stopped. And I guess, and that can happen for kids that develop that kind of OCD at that age. It tends to be, it's genetic because it comes from, I've got long family lines on my mother's side. It's also comes from trauma.
Okay.
So I had the double whammies. That was, it was only a matter of time.
Wow.
But it gives you like a superpower though. Like I think when I moved past that, I have obsessional capacity to really do. Like I have a.
Well, you're very driven. You're one of the most driven people I know, and you're fucking hilarious. There's no blowing smoke up your ass. You're a very funny person who I respect as a comedian and a person too, but you're very funny. You sort of the shows that I've seen, you've never talked about your past stuff where you probably could easily.
Yeah, if I did a longer, more bio show, I probably would. But you know, that's I've got a heap of stories. I've had a lot of, like, all my life dealing with, you know, familial stories of addiction and mental health issues.
Yep.
And then dealing with that kind of stuff, you know, in my own personal life.
Yep.
One of the hardest things, I think, and I can say this because my first partner talked about his story because he wrote a book, so he talked about it. But the father of my first 2 kids had a pretty serious heroin addiction.
Right.
So, well, I don't think there's pretty serious. That's supposed to just a weekend little flirtation. But no,
just done it Fridays.
It had years.
Yeah.
And so it had been one of those things on and off again. And he was well known because his brother was Michael Hutchins, and we were together at the time when Michael died.
Really?
And so
that's recent. Recent.
No,
what's that? 20 years. Yeah.
But it was that created, I would say, one of the hardest moments where you're dealing with this absolute, like, it went bonkers.
Yeah.
Bonkers. Like,
it's fucking heroin.
Massive grief. Michael's death.
Yeah.
This family was fighting, and the Woman's Day, and this, and
because it was so public.
It was really public.
Yep.
His addiction went out of control, but I still had to turn up. Like, and I was living.
You doing comedy then?
Yeah, all the way through.
Oh, weird.
You'd be and often you're dealing with all this stuff that was so complex, and a lot of it in the public domain.
Where were you then?
Still living in Byron.
So you're in town. Okay, so you're in Byron. Did the public know that you were Michael Hutchins' sister-in-law?
Yeah.
Okay.
They did. It wasn't anything except it clearly, for my partner at the time, it magnified his addiction issues.
Yeah.
Made it it was like living hell.
100%.
But you're still trying to keep it together, and you just kind of like just be bawling in the car, get out. I didn't even have a car. What am I talking about, the car? We were so broke, I walked everywhere.
So you just did gigs around town then? You were just in Byron?
Yeah, I didn't
much?
have a car. I was such a hippie. I didn't have a car till I was about 30, 31.
Wow.
And then it was such a shit car.
Yep.
I had to get in through the passenger windows because the doors were fucked.
Yep.
It's so embarrassing. Like, I had babies, so I had to put the babies through, climb in. I was real skinny, so I could just get in there.
And you were doing like $10 gigs and things like that.
I was just doing whatever.
Well, how did you deal? This is what I want to know: is how did you deal with? Okay, so you got all this stuff going on from Nan and Pop, Mum and Dad, blah blah blah, and then you get into you, and then your husband's on heroin, and then Michael dies. How do you get up every day? How did you fight that yourself? Because you can't. That's got to affect you and your work and becoming the person that you are now. Obviously, everything leads to where you are now. How did you get through?
Honestly, I smoked a lot of weed.
Okay. Yep. Yeah. Matt knows that. Look, he smoked breakfast.
And I'm not saying that's the solution. I was saying at that time.
That was your coping mechanism.
Yeah, I would get up, roll I was so pumped on my adrenals because of the stress. I'd roll a joint, have a coffee. I would have had 2 joints and 10 cigarettes and 50 coffees. And I'd go, it's not even 8 a.m. yet. And I'd be like, charged. Like, it's weird how you smoke a joint and then keep having coffee. Like, I'd have so much coffee.
So is this about the 80s, 90s?
No, this is definitely the 90s. This would have been about 97, 98. So, and I was also painting. I actually found that's when I started painting. I sort of painted a lot then. I was sort of exhibiting a lot in Sydney.
Yep.
I lived off my art mainly for over a decade.
Yep.
Was having about, I don't know, maybe 4 or 5. I'd have massive sellout shows in Sydney. It was weird.
Doing art.
Yeah, and I realised that I think my mental health, I think my art was a big part of how
an outlet?
and it was whimsical and strange, and I'm not like anything that was around at the time. And I think that was how I worked it out. Eventually, I I left that relationship and I found out I was pregnant. I only had one child then, Zoe, and I found out I was pregnant. This is after, it was really hard to maintain a life. And I'm a buoyant person, but you know, I felt like my brain was going to crack. And then I found out I'm pregnant with the second daughter, and I went, oh, well, I guess I can be a single mum with 2 kids. It'll be easier than managing in this situation. And then I took myself to therapy. And it was like, that was funny, because I went, I'm broken. Like, I need to really address the way I'm living, and I've got all this baggage, and I can't take it on for my kids. So I get this therapist, right? And then I ring her up, and I find out my partner's got a new girlfriend. And after seeing this woman once, I went, this is great, she's good. And she rings, she goes, I didn't realise there's a conflict of interest. You know, your ex-partner's new girlfriend is her regular therapist as well. So I can't see you. And then I go, fuck. This is what I say, because I'm a really nice. I go, fuck you. How dare you? After all these years, I'm like, fucking hell, blah, blah. And I went nuts. And she rang back. She goes, she goes, look, I think you need to see me more.
So she dropped the other bird.
Yeah. And you know the weird thing
That's
is,
funny.
I'm friends with all those people. Like, I love, she later on had a son with my ex. I love him. He's a beautiful young man.
So you've got a relationship?
I've still got a really good relationship with the first dad.
Okay, good.
With him, like, you know, I respect that he had a lot to go through with. He got his life together.
But everyone gets a second chance, I guess.
Well, you kind of, you know what, you can't, it would have been a waste of time.
Energy.
To stay angry. And I wanted to blame everyone. And I could have. I could have played a victim really easily. And gone, you did this to me, and because there was horrible stuff happening to me. But nothing was going to change until I changed it. So I had to be in charge of that. So it was hard. You know, I went through some really, I had to, like real dark night of the soul of facing who I was.
You could have easily fallen into the trap. And like you're saying, go down that road, stop comedy, stop art, fuck the world, here's me 2 kids, fucking just living in your car with one window. And just be a bitter woman, and I'm not saying as a misogynist, a bitter woman. There's fuckwit men out there too who think the world owe them everything. Like, you could have easily went down that track, but you stood up and you went and got help. Is probably the best message out of that. Yeah,
I went and I knew I had to do it, and I knew, but my art, my painting, my writing, and what I do on stage, that's part of my mental health program.
For sure.
I don't mean it. I'm not, but. It is part of what keeps me buoyant. And so something I always did was, I've been a creative since I was in preschool, basically. I've always made work. I've always created something. I've made art. I've been engaged in projects. I've written books.
The big one for me is...
That's why you're doing this. Like, you just do it, because it's
I wouldn't be doing this, again, blowing smoke up your ass. I wouldn't be doing this.
There's a lot of smoke up there.
It is. But I wouldn't be doing I wouldn't be doing this if it wasn't for Mandy Nolan. Because
Oh, that's nice to know.
Well, it's true, because I was anxious, all that stuff, my own story. But someone approached me to come and do the Cancer Council fundraiser at Kingscliff. And I think I came in, I think you'd already had 2 sessions or something. Yeah, I think you'd already had 2 sessions with the group. Then I came in, and then I did stand up. Because I'd never thought, I've always thought about doing comedy. But I thought, I'm never going to do it. I'm a fucking idiot. I'm, anxious and nerves and all this sort of stuff. So I got up and met you, did the Kingscliff gig. I went for 15 minutes for the first time. Then I did Ocean Shores Country Club, then the Ballina RSL straight away with you. So I'm like, I got addicted. I'm like, holy shit. But you've done this for, how many people have you done the Virgin Sacrifice for?
All over, because I've travelled and run different programs. I've taught over 2,000 people.
To do stand-up comedy?
Yeah.
And 95% of those people are fucked, like depressed and anxious and needed that outlet. And you're the person that's, like you're saying.
It's like a weird, I've actually created programs where I've worked with people with mental health, various, we call that funny in the head. and I did that for Queensland Health, and we did presentation. That was around, it was around helping people create routines that were around addressing the stigma and the stereotypes around mental health and how people, what people happen to people in their lives. And that was I've done a couple of those. They're really powerful. But I actually do think, you don't have to become a comedian to get benefit from what it is to find your voice.
No.
And to find how to position yourself or to talk about your issues and things in a way where you're almost outside of yourself. I think you show yourself some compassion, but you also give voice to things that might not usually be spoken about.
Yep.
And I think that, that's what I love doing. So that's why I sort of taught people, because
that got me good.
No.
But you've there's not many comedians. I know most of the comedians on the North Coast now, and everyone says, "I go, how'd you get into comedy?" Everyone says, I did Mandy, Nolan, Virgin Sacrifice," and then and most of them I met have got fucked up childhoods, head noise, all this sort of stuff, and they probably never would have made that leap for someone who's and you've come through from your backstory all the way through. You've found a reason to live. You're saying you're always busy and you're finding work. Well, you've created and you've given everyone an outlet. It's unreal. You've unleashed some terrible comedians who I've met. But you've also unleashed some fucking good ones.
You don't know when you're working with people. I love working with people because I love people's stories, and I love, my greatest survival technique. I've been through some real adversity. Harder than most people. I don't talk about it a lot, but it's really hard. But my key survival is that no matter what, it goes a little bit in my mushroom, but I was loved. I've been so loved by. It was a dysfunctional family.
But you had love.
I was really loved. And that makes a difference. Love makes a difference, and care makes a difference. So when you work with people, when I teach people, I'm not going in there like a real hippie, hugging people all the time.
No.
But when you work with people and you treat them with kindness and care and compassion, it transforms people, because it changes something in them about how they speak to themselves.
It truly does.
And you only need one or two people in your life when you're in crisis to be that person who shines the light to show that you have value and that you're worth caring for. It's a profound thing that we can do for other human beings, and I think it's really important. So if I can give people the skills to, in various occasions, to believe in themselves, or to stop beating themselves up, or to know that their story is important. It's not unique. None of our stories are unique.
No.
But they are meaningful and important, and that we connect by sharing them however we share. That's amazing. I love doing it. And if it's funny, I'm less interested in funny anymore. Funny doesn't really... If it's funny, I love laughing.
Yes.
But I'm more interested in authenticity and connection.
Just do something is the message, isn't it? So just if you just buy a fucking skateboard. And you don't have to run out and do a comedy course, or you don't have to do all this sort of stuff. But I think I'm doing a thing at the moment, a course at the moment. It's through Psych K is what it's called, and it's all about shifting your energy. And it's all about, you can either stay here in the negative, or you can push it in the positive. Which, that's the message I'm getting from you. It's just basically push through, find something you love, be loved, give love, get help. You don't hide behind it, and you're out in the obviously the public eye. Yeah, we're just gonna. Okay, so. So Mandy, thank you very much for your story. Honestly, I didn't want to cook it. I wanted to keep talking because there's so much stuff I still wanted to ask, and we might have to do a season 2 episode with you. Your message was it was a powerful message for men and women both, just to get out and talk to people, get creative, use your brain, don't stay in the hole, and don't woe is me is basically what you've basically said without saying the actual line woe is me is lift up, find something to do. I've created a teriyaki burger here for you today. Yeah. It's my version. You meant to have a bit of pineapple and teriyaki, but I don't like overcomplicated things. Well, I do overcomplicate. I fucking speaking of overcomplicated, Nana, I know you're watching. It's fine. My family's massive Nationals family. Mandy is not here to convert me.
I'm not.
But she's trying.
I am from Kingaroy though, so you're safe.
So Nana, it's okay. All right?
Yeah, it's all right.
I'm so fucking terrified. I've lost so many family members over meeting you today.
Oh, no.
But that's right. They're sacrificing a pig today at Taugam.
That's right.
Because of this.
It's kind of getting the karmic scales right.
He's like, the boys interviewing the Greens member. Fucking, let's kill a pig in the honour of that. And because I'm the fallen soul. So this is a teriyaki beef. I'm going to cut it in half for you. Now, I do recommend...
You're about... Don't say... My God.
That's my Nana. Get her! Get her!
Stab her.
So what we're going to do...
I've seen Apocalypse Now, that last scene where they kill the ox.
Yes.
Fucking amazing.
They'll be doing that right about now at Taugam.
All right.
Okay, so stand up. This is how you eat a juicy burger. So this is the Australian way too. So you spread your feet.
All right.
Spread your feet out.
God, it's like having a baby. Okay.
Grab your burger.
Yeah.
Yep.
All right.
Lean over. That's perfect.
Oh my
Lean
God,
over.
it's got so much here. I've got to get my hair back.
You're right.
Okay.
And then take a whopping big bite of that.
Oh,
it's very unflattering, but it's perfect.
Oh, that's really good.
Is that good?
It's really good.
Yeah.
You better eat that one.
No, I can't. I'm actually gluten. I've only found out last week I'm gluten. I'm highly allergic to wheat.
Isn't it funny? So am I, but I'm just eating this anyway.
Well, it makes me swell. I'm sure one of the boys here will eat this. But, so Soul Breads, local Byron Bay, we're getting our burgers from. And Juju's Cafe in Moorlambar is where I'm making it today. So, on behalf of Buster's Burgers.
It's really good. You cooked it all the way through too.
Yeah.
I'm impressed because I hate it when it's still pink.
Yeah, you can't, yeah.
I'm a Queenslander. I like it burnt.
Cook it proper. Cook it till it's dead. Well, thank you very much for coming on my show. I'm stoked. The message is strong. The message for the whole show is grab a friend, have a talk, get the message out there, have a feed, spill teriyaki sauce over fucking everything.
Get your hands ready.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Mandy.
Oh,
Thank you.